Hello, everyone, and welcome to PMI Northeast Ohio Chapter's Tech Thursday webinar. Today, we have our guest speaker, Ben Howard, who is here to talk about using Power BI to provide portfolio dashboard and reports. So before we get started, I just want to remind everybody about our series. This is a monthly webinar that we hold every third Thursday of the month with a focus on project management tools and techniques. We are finalizing everything for our upcoming webinar, which is on July 16th. That is going to be about supercharging your Excel skills with macros and VBA automation. So be sure to go on the PMI Northeast Ohio website and register for that webinar. We will be providing PDU codes. Those will actually be sent out after this webinar, so those will be emailed to all attendees. You will be eligible to earn 1 hour of technical PDU if you hold a PMP or Program Management Professional certification. We also do record these webinars and we make them available on Chapter's website. So if you missed any of our previous webinars, or you would like to catch up on any of the old ones, you can go to our PMI Northeast Ohio website and check them out over there. Please feel free to ask your questions. You can submit them through the Q&A feature or the chat feature. I'll actively be monitoring both, and Ben will be taking pauses periodically through his presentation, and we can get those questions answered for you. Lastly, we sent out a survey after the presentation is over. Please take time to fill that in. That's proved really helpful for us in the past. Your feedback is definitely used to come up with topics for our upcoming presentations. So take your time and fill those out. So now jumping over to the speaker, and I will keep this brief and I'll let Ben do most of the talking, but Ben has over 20 years of consultancy experience implementing IT-based solutions across different sectors. He has worked with several key organizations such as Dell and Microsoft. He has been a Microsoft MVP for the past decade, and he is actively involved in the Microsoft Project User Group, and also the sole author of Microsoft Project 2013 Plain and Simple. His client-facing work involves tools such as Microsoft Project and Project Online. He also uses Power BI. He has several blog posts about these tools as well, so if you're interested, please do go to his website and give those a read. And with that being said, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen and hand it over to you, Ben.
All right, thanks very much. Osis, that's brilliant. Let me just figure out sharing a screen on here. Let's do that one. Let's share on there. And let's just shift F5 on here. So good. Oh, wrong one. Let's just get rid of that view, slideshow. Let's not use a presenter view. Let's go for monitor. I have no idea which one this one is. Let's assume it's going to be the primary monitor. Yay, brilliant. So happy lunchtime, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We will keep this so that you have at least 5 minutes at the end of this to go and grab a coffee before you start your next task of the day. As introduced, my name is Ben Howard. I've been an MVP. Actually, I need to update some material somewhere for 11 years now. Yeah, I did once write a book, but kind of that was back in 2013. So that probably needs to come off my list of achievements. More importantly, as was suggested, I spend a lot of time working with clients around Microsoft Project and Project Online specifically. And a lot of that then involves writing and reports about, program status, project status, portfolio status. How do we communicate that? How do we collaborate it all? And that's really done these days more and more with a tool called Power BI, simply because that tool, it's just given away by Microsoft. I mean, not given away. They don't give anything away for free, or much for free, of course. But it's included in many large organizations' enterprise licenses. So whether they're buying, if they're buying an E5 license to use Power BI, and it just links into Microsoft's enterprise project report or enterprise project tools, which are Project Online and the new project for the web now, and roadmaps as well. And so that's kind of where I get involved with things. As was mentioned, I blog semi frequently, 4 times a year or so. You can find me on applepark.co.uk. I occasionally tweet, and some of the things you'll see today are on a GitHub site. I also, and here's a blatant plug, I also do produce some courses for an organization called Pluralsight. So if your organization happens to have a license with Pluralsight, you can find kind of 14 courses up there that I've written, and thousands of courses to do with all sorts of tech. So that's kind of me. This session is about Power BI, but we can't talk about Power BI or Tableau or anything else such as Excel, as we can see on the screen here, to produce charts if we don't fundamentally understand what's good and what's bad about charts. Okay, so for me, most bad or forgettable reports in the business, if we're producing charts, whether we like it or not, we're in the business of selling information. And in fact, turning information from information, we're turning data from just data into information. Information is what people make decisions around, and all charts, or all bad charts, kind of suffer from one or more of these similar problems. And I was at a customer yesterday and they said, "We'd love to have that information, Ben." And I said, "Well, you might love to have it, but if you're going to bother giving it to somebody, because they didn't have anything, let's at least make it visually appealing. Let's make sure that it works as a chart, as a set of data." So, and that's really, what I spend a lot of time around. And as soon as we start to bring enterprise data, in this case, project data, into a system, then we need to make sure that, it's accurate, the data has integrity, that it is timely, that actually that data provides meaning so that we can then add value and make some decisions upon that. And so, have a look at your reports and have a think and say, wow, are my reports really good, or is it just a collection of ad hoc stuff that we've created for a while or over the years? I won't go through any of these. Key to this, and I picked this one up off the web a couple of weeks ago, is if we're going to have reports, then those reports are never going to be adopted if data is difficult to see and understand. I've only got, and we as humans only have so much brain power and typically only so much attention span. If data is difficult to get at, we'll probably just gloss over it. But that's obviously a large sweeping statement in there, but many people will. Okay, so if we use data and visualizations like this, which in my mind are bloody awful, excuse my language, beep that out of recording, then of course we're gonna have a much bigger challenge turning that data into information. So presenting data nicely is a key to adoption, and I like this slide specifically. So Heinz tomato ketchup, I'm sure has reached the US. It was there last time I was there, of course. And in the old days when I was a lad, we used to get tomato ketchup, as in the bottle on the left-hand side there, which simply put, was difficult to extract the product. So great product, but actually using that product could be quite difficult, because you had to go and turn the bottle upside down, unscrew the top, turn the bottle upside down, give it a big pat on the bottom here, and then hopefully you get a dollop of tomato ketchup out. Sometimes you got rather more than a dollop, and sometimes you hardly got anything. You used to, of course, we still have the same product, but now it's presented to us in a different way. Okay, we have a little squeezy bottle. It's easy to get out. We can control exactly how much of a product we want on our fries or our chips or our burger, etc. So as a report designer, you know, we go back, you know, here's the end product. Well, this is what this is. This is still some raw numbers. The raw numbers are good, but they're not easy to consume. So we need to move away from just having raw numbers on the left-hand side to having the great product, raw numbers, which are easy to consume. Ultimately, we need to begin to think, when we use tools such as Power BI, we need to think like a designer, okay, rather than an IT person. All right. So that's that's the bit on that. Okay, so what do we have? Well, this is Power BI, and I'm going to show you a lot about Power BI, hopefully, but like a report, Power BI is nothing. You know, there's no point in knowing stuff about Power BI without understanding the context of what we're looking at. And so what we're looking at here is Project Online. Now, Project Online is a Microsoft tool. It stores Microsoft projects out in the web or up in the web. And against each of those projects, we can have certain fields. So we've got things like the project ID, the project name, start, finish, percent complete, And we've got custom fields that we can create as well, such as who the customer might be. This is just a pure demo system, of course. So, you know, who's the customer? What region is the customer located in? What's the project status? And ultimately, you know, I can have almost an infinite set of information here, and some of this information, you know, is pretty good, and it provides me a report on the web, so I can get, you know, an overview here of the status, the duration of those projects. So this one, SPO development, we can see started back in 2018, due to finish April 2020, so should have already finished, but at the moment it's only 36% complete. So I can you know, get some value out of that, and I can see how much work is involved and the duration, etc. I've got different ways of viewing this data. So at the moment we're looking at it by country. We might go and look at it by department. So we've got the typical sales, marketing, HR, and project manager or project department. And then we might look at that by status. Of course, you know, we'll have some projects, for example, which are accepted and some of which active. I have none on here which are completed, etc., etc. So that's, you know, the data that's some of the data, at least, that we're storing. Each project, let's just go into this one, SPO deployment. Each project just has a set of tasks. Again, forgive me, demo database. So some very simple tasks in here, phase 1, and then some activities in phase 1. Then we have phase 2 and some activities in phase 2, and then phase 3 and some activities in phase 3. So we have the schedule data, and then also with each project, we're able, from a just from a context and perspective here for you guys, able to store different bits of data around that project. So I have a SharePoint site for this project, which is called SPO deployment, and against that, I could have some risks. With it. So we've got the status of that, we have the category, probability, impact, cost, and some other calculated fields or fields that are calculated for us, such as cost exposure and the actual exposure, which is a function of the probability and the impact. Okay, as the cost exposure is, it's a function of the cost multiplied by the exposure. So, you know, that's what Project Online does. That's the context of what we're really looking at here. Okay, so with that kind of understood and hopefully understood, let's go and have a look at this tool called Power BI. In fact, let's just, for those of you who don't know anything about Power BI, let's move that out of the way. Go over to here and just type in powerbi.microsoft.com. So the history, this is if you like, your one-stop shop for finding out everything about Power BI, including the products, what is Power BI, etc. So let me try and give you an overview of this. Power BI ultimately is a visualization tool. It allows you to visualize lots of data. It aggregates that data into a single place. So if I've got 1,000 projects running in my enterprise and each project has a cost with it, then I can get the aggregated cost for the total number of projects, effectively the sum of the cost. Now, if each of those projects is split down into a region, then I'm able to get the cost per region. So Power BI is a visualization tool for enterprise data. And there's, a few tools in there, basically. The main ones we care about are Pro, or Desktop and Pro. Okay, and this is what's included in your E5 license. We also have some additional tools around buying additional premium licenses. We got Power BI Mobile, which I'll show you, that effectively comes for free, and a couple of other solutions. If you chose to embed your reports in a website or some other solution, then Embedded does that for us. Okay, so there's lots of stuff on here. I would suggest going to the learning if you want to find out, if you're really starting and saying, hey, Power BI looks great, after today's demo, where do I get more information? Because you might not just use it for project reports. Oh, lo and behold, you could use it for anything really, any set of data. And then there's a whole community around there with the usual user groups and community blogs and events and stuff like that. Okay, so that is kind of what is Power BI. Let's throw that up to there. Therefore, what I'm going to look at, if we look in the products initially, I'm going to show you Power BI Desktop. Now, Power BI Desktop is the report designer. And specifically, let's just have a look at, we're going to have a look at this one. We'll close this bit here. Should I apply? Not now. Okay. So here's a Power BI Desktop piece, and thinking about how do we report across a dashboard, well, or a set of reports. Well, we might have something like this, okay, and on this page I've got different what are called visualizations. Okay, and to keep it simple, this visualization here is just a bit of text. Okay, so we could type in there whatever we wanted to type in. Okay, we can format that as we like, because of course we have to have something that's nicely presentable. We've got other visualizations, this one for example, which is just a drop-down list. So it's a filter field or a drop-down list, and that is either a single or multi-select depending upon how we choose to run that. We've also got, generally down this side on the right hand side, some single visualizations which are called cards, and a card just presents a single figure. Okay, so it might be the total cost. In this case, we can see we've got a few of these. One's showing, the total number of projects I've got, 16. I've got the total cost of those projects, not very much on my demo system, £9,000 and a bit. The variance between that and the baseline. In this case, that variance is displayed as red. That's because that's a negative variance. Okay, so I'm going, I'm spending more than I said I would. So some of these visualizations, as we report on them, we will put some graphical information on there, red, amber, green type things. Okay, this is obviously called the portfolio dashboard. So this is meant to be a summary. So I've got a summary of the number of active risks and a summary of the number of active issues. So all of these things kind of just headline numbers. In here, we can see that we've got a count of projects by governance phase. So that's what we're looking at here. Let's just sort of home in on that as a spotlight so we can see it. I don't have any governance phases on this demo system, and so that's blank. But typically, this would be, Microsoft call this visualization a bar chart, and that would link, on the y-axis, we would typically see the governance phases on there. Here we have a donut. This is projects by type. So I've got two project types, one called enterprise project type and another just called enterprise project. But again, we could have HR projects, we could have capital projects or research and development projects, etc., etc. So we can begin some projects into different ways. And below there, so this is a donut, obviously. It's basically a bar chart with a hole in the middle. Bar charts aren't particularly liked in the kind of data visualization world because we are not very good as humans at understanding what that area is in terms of its percentage or size in relation to this. I mean, yes, I can say this one's smaller and this one's bigger, but how much smaller? Could I quantify that? No, not very easy. I kind of have to hover over or do something with the legend in order to see that, you know, in that case, that's 12.5%, and therefore that's 87.5%. And below there, we have a table. So what's this table showing us? We'll just maximize this a little bit. This table is showing me every project name, or 16 of them. We have some hyperlinks in there so we can go directly to the data. And then we have, you know, some of that information. We saw project owner, start date, finish date, cost, and some red, amber, green indicators and percent complete. We could add into there the country or the status or the region or anything else that we captured. It's really about, you know, how do we set this report up so that it begins to work for us? So a lot of our reports ultimately are, you know, we'll have some key data on the left-hand side or information. And then we may have a tabular set of data which we can scroll up and down as necessary. And sometimes in that tabular data, you know, we'll put icons on there, or we'll put, we can color code this as well, as you'll see soon. And then around the top, we might just look for different, you know, project owners. So let's just have a look at all of the ones that I suspect Ben Howard owns all of these. So I could select the rest of the visualizations change based upon that selection. So Ben Howard owns 14 of the 16 projects. Okay. You know, that's how it works. So typically, let's just have a look at that. Double-in ones. How many double-in ones have we got? We've got 2 double-in ones. Okay. That Ben Howard owns rather. That's OneDrive deployment and SPO. Any visualization tool, whether it's Tableau, Power BI, or any of the others, then you would expect to have this cross filtering, as it's called, between the visuals, such as you select one or more visuals, the others change. So that's okay. So that's fine. That's kind of a portfolio dashboard. A lot of people, of course, with projects want to understand, where's the schedule at, Ben? Okay, what's the schedule looking like? When do we start? When do we finish? And the visualizations that we've got for that are there's a few actually. And I just kind of wanted to show you this again. So here's a schedule looking at all of the projects. So this will be all 16 because there's no filtering up here. We could say, okay, let's just have a look at everything that's starting this year onwards. Okay, and that then again filters this nicely. So again, just a different filter, but this time filtering on date, because, you know, we might want to know which projects are due to start this year, which ones are due to finish this year. Okay, and then, you know, within there we can drill in and get some information about these projects. Visualizations, because I've talked about them, you know, what visualizations do we have or can we have? Well, Microsoft produce a standard number. Let's just see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 multiplied by probably, what's that? That's 5 rows. So about 30 odd visualizations at the moment in the latest release. But you can go and add in other third-party visualizations as well. You can click on here, get more visuals, and you can go and get more visuals from the App Store, or you can create your own. So there is a tool that allows you to create your own visuals. But everything you've seen so far that I've shown is just a standard Microsoft Visual. But you'll see below here, I have added in some other third-party visuals. So I had a customer recently, and we were playing with the Gantt charts because they wanted to see Gantt chart data. And so I produced a Power BI report for them, which just took a base set of data. Let me show you this, because it is important and was important to them. This was the base data we took very simply for this. Project name, project manager. Each project had a start and a project finish date, because you can't draw a Gantt chart without a start and finish date, right? You got to have those two values. Each one had a duration. I think this was defined in a number of days. A percent complete, and then this customer wanted to show milestones on the Gantt chart as well, or at least a single milestone. And so I created some milestones and milestone dates. And then we looked at that on kind of the 5 Gantt charts that come out of the, or that we have access to. And so this was one. This was something called Gantt chart by XViz. XViz developed quite a lot of Power BI visualizations, and you can see for my big project, it started here, it finishes here. That dark blue piece is giving me a view of the percent complete, and the milestone is the date of the milestones. That green icon is the milestone. You can see the same thing here for another project as well. And all of these visualizations have different formatting options. Okay, so we can choose whether we have data labels on or off. So they're on, they're off, they're on. We can change the data colors. So if I decided that these should be orange, then we can have orange, and maybe we'll have a dark, that wouldn't quite be orange, but more towards brown, dark brown, indicating percent complete, and a lighter orange elsewhere. So you can start to look at these and say, okay, what's the best way of visualizing the data? Which field really works for me? Using this one because of its simplicity. It's not very well known about, but it does work quite nicely. And that's the one we ended up using. So sometimes it's worth just having a look and saying, okay, let's not just create a report. Let's go out to our client and say, which one of these actually meets your needs? Which one is the best one for you? And obviously I just created this report called Comparison of Timeline Charts. Okay, so I wanted to show you that because you shouldn't necessarily just kind of take what's out of a default. What we can then do, and what you should do as well, again, is there's too much data to put in one place, and so therefore we should split this up. So I've got kind of an overview, I've got a timeline, I've got this view called portfolio costs, and primarily this report was created by Microsoft. I'm not trying to pass it off as my own work here, although of course they created it in dollars, and so I turned it into something where people could decide which currency they used, and I use pounds, and so hence you see the pound sign there. But here's another type of visualization we've got. This one which says portfolio costs. This is a gauge, so we might have a target up here, and then we're somewhere along the line to that target, typically used for number of defects, parts per million, or number of defects per million, or a sales target is the typical one people use for demos, etc. We might have a number of projects we want to complete, or a number of benefits we want to fulfill this year. Okay, so that's all well and good. Again, we can see the same sort of layout where we've got some visualizations, and then below there we've got a table. This table is conditionally formatted, so the largest cost variances are highlighted in red, and the smaller ones down to small red. And not only is it conditionally formatted, but we've also got the data bar on here as well. Sometimes we're very good as humans at looking at relative sizes of data. So that data bar just being small there, I can really understand straight away that that's very small in comparison to this one here. We're very good at gauging the length of specific bars, etc. And again, color plays a big important piece to me here. The cost variance in red here is absolutely key. That's all well and good. We can, and you should, of course, if I go back to the portfolio dashboard, be able to begin to drill into something. So if here from this dashboard, I decide for whatever reason that Hume Grammar School isn't looking so well, we can right click on that and we can which, you know, typically sometimes people do so they can analyze it elsewhere. That's really bad if they've done that, or if they want to do that, then it means I've not done my job correctly by providing the right reports. But we can also drill through into other reports. So I'll drill through into a report or a page called project status, which will just give me the status of that project. Here we are, Hume Grammar School. We can see in this case, the amount of work we have over specific time. Okay. And how much is actual work and how much is planned or scheduled work, and what's the baseline? We have no baseline on here. This was actually one of my customers projects, but you can see quite nicely we ramp up the majority of work, or did ramp up the majority of work in February for that, or we'd planned to, and then it starts to come down in April and May and tails off towards the end of the year. So again, you know, there's an example of just using a bar chart or what Microsoft will call a stacked column chart to represent, you know, work values, a series of work values over time. Again, same sort of thing. We have no costs on here, but I've got a representation of the percent complete. We'll scroll back through that. So that kind of deals, you know, the work stuff, the task stuff all works quite nicely. In terms of resources and what are resources doing, because again, we often will try and track resources on tasks or resources on projects. This is a little bit of work that I did that I took from Microsoft, and what I really wanted to do here is look at resource availability and their existing work and list that by project. So what we have here is a work and capacity graph at the moment by month, but notice I've got 3 little buttons up here, and so we can see, you know, my capacity, which is a dark black line, is pretty good at the moment compared to the actual, you know, remaining work that I've got in each period. And that graphical data is just a way of seeing this tabular data below. So again, here's the thing. We're much better at seeing graphs than we are at tables, but we want the tables often for the detail if there's an issue with a graph. And that's often why you'll see graphs and tables together. They effectively display the same information, but they display it slightly differently. And so we can see down here my availability heat map by month, just showing you, you know, how much time I've got available in June, July, August, etc., and then some totals. And again, this is conditionally formatted. If I have no availability or a negative availability, i.e. somebody's given me more work than I've actually got time to do, then this will be red. On this side, we again provide more information. So Ben Howard, okay, he's the only one who's actually got any work at the moment. Where's he working? Well, he's working on Hume Grammar School. Well, what's he doing on Hume Grammar School? Well, he's doing these 2 activities. Okay, this is the start of the activity and the remaining work, in this case in hours, not days. Okay, so we can see that data. And of course, if we just click on any of these items, then again, they all just modify the existing chart. So we can see, you know, Matt here, basically, he has no work. His remaining capacity, or his capacity, is equal to his remaining work. He doesn't have anything to do. Ben, on the other hand, you know, is slightly different. He actually has some work to do. Now, we're looking at this by month, but again, you need to think of your customers and how you might look at this. So I can go and have a look at this by week instead. And here we get the week numbers, often used in Europe, week 25, 26, etc. We've got some downtime around week 52 and week 53 because we've got Christmas and 2020-01. We have a small amount of time in there. This is a problem. Years don't nicely span weeks and months don't either. So you'll often get this when you look at things on a weekly basis, you'll see this sort of thing. And obviously we have some non-working time around Christmas and New Year. And we can look at this on a daily basis as well. And this on here, you should just kind of nicely see 5 days a week. We've got, some time, and then at a weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I don't do any work. And so therefore my capacity is set to 0. So next Saturday must be the 20th of June. I'll be right. That's the 18th today, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So this is, ultimately it is data that just kind of works. So that's, again, and you can see it here, color coordinated and conditionally formatted coming in rather than color coordinated. So, we know we've got project schedules, we know we've got tasks, we know we've got work, we know we might have costs on there, we've got resources and assignments and lots of things. One of the other things we bring through is project risks and issues. And we just track these. Well, we can track them in this way. This is looking at issues and risks for, I think, all projects. Yes, it is. Even though it just gives us a single project up there, we can ignore that for now. So again, split into 2. So we've got some project issues, simply one project issue, which is about exchange rate movement. And we've got some risks over on this side. And we're plotting these initially in this risk matrix. So we're looking at probability versus impact. So again, that's just a different visualization. That's this. I can't remember what this one is actually. Yes, it's this one. It's a bubble chart or a scatter chart. Just with and scatter charts are good for having a look at 3 variables. In this case, we've got the probability and the impact, and then in the middle here is the cost. Okay, so the cost of solving that. So obviously you want to try and resolve these issues, and this one, or this risk, if you like, this one is called scope creep. As I type on it, we can see that this table here changes, and it's owned by Andre. Okay, so straight on the phone to phone up Andre and say what's happening with this one. And then this one here, let's just have a look at this. This one's owned by me, and it's a risk called Legrambeau. Okay, so we can go and see that. If I want to see everything that's owned by Ben, then we can just click on the donut here to select Ben, and you can see the 2 risks that I have. But we've got other ways. We can be very creative as well. And on this matrix here, I've actually got the more typical, this is a 9 grid, but you could have a 5 by 5 grid as well, of probability impact chart also. Okay, and of course we can then just say, well, just show me all the red risks. Okay, so I can click on the red slicer, and lo and behold, that's my scope creep, owned by Andrea. It's a category 2, but we might have finance, personnel, etc. in the category. The cost is 50 grand, but because the probability is 90%, then the cost exposure is 45 grand. Okay, so those sorts of things are, that's a different way we can begin to look at this sort of data. Okay, so this visualization itself is not one visualization. This is made up of multiple. In fact, this is made up of 9 little cards. Okay, each card is formatted, and each card gets a number in it. Okay, determining how many risks we have in that, or at least showing us how many risks we have that are at that level. Okay, so you can see I've only got one amber one. I've actually got a total of 5 green ones and 1 red one. The red one is the highest level. So that's all well and good. What we're able to do, though, now you've got an understanding of kind of how we can use Power BI to manage that portfolio. And I could, I could have a program name in here as a filter, so I can see all of the projects, that are or all of the risks that are, part of the enterprise project suite, if you like, okay, or all of the ones that are part of Dublin, etc., etc., or that could be a country code. Okay, so we want to go and have a look at all of the risks that we have in. Let's just have a look. I have no idea where my projects are done, so let's just say Europe. Okay, because I might be the risk manager for Europe. Okay, and pretty much they're all in Europe. Okay, that was 3 before, so I've got 1 elsewhere. Okay, so that's the power of Power BI. But Power BI on the desktop itself is okay. It's great for me, but really the value of a tool for like Power BI for managing and reporting is it's the ability to send it out to 50,000 users in my organization. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, let's just go up to here. We're back on the web. I've got Power BI. There's a Power BI app.powerbi.com. That's known as the Power BI service. And I can publish my reports to the Power BI service. So let's just do that. I'm going to create a new workspace for this, just so that we move away from some of this clutter. I'll just call this PMI US. We won't bother with a description, and we'll just save that. Okay, there's lots of other stuff I can do in terms of admins and users and da-da-da-da-da. So that I've now got this workspace called PMI US, but I have no data in there. So let's go and publish this Power BI desktop application into there. We'll save the changes to that first of all. This just normally takes 15 seconds, but of course 15 seconds on a webinar is like a lifetime.
Hey, Ben, we do have a question.
Yeah, let's go for that.
A question has come in asking, how can I display the dashboard in my cloud site and pull the data from database inside the cloud?
Okay, that's a good question. Let me just publish this and I'll show you a little bit about that, because it depends where your data's held. Okay, so I'm just going to say PMI US, click select. Okay, so we're going to publish that up to that site. Now, whilst that's working, over here we've got a button called Get Data. Basically allows you to suck in data into Power BI from many sources. Okay. So ultimately it depends where your cloud data is saved, but let's just have a look at this. So we've got the standard data sources all fine, including OData, which is where I get the project from, including a blank query. So I've connected this up to Jira and other types of solutions before, which again, cloud hosted, but I didn't really want blank data from there. What I really wanted was get data. Okay, on the More button down here, then Microsoft work with lots of vendors to try and make sure that they can connect to the vendors' data sources. So come on, Mr. Screen, this is a bit slow, isn't it? Here we go. So here's all of the data sources that you've got. So including Azure, including SAP, including Plan View, if people are using Plan View, etc. You can go and get the data. So if you can connect to it, pretty much you can get it and bring it into Power BI to play with it. Yeah, so that's the answer. If it's on the cloud, you can get to it. My data here is held on the cloud, of course. Is there another question there? Hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, I think that was helpful. And we do have another question that just came in. And the question is, do you have any recommendations on the type of charts to use in various project management scenarios?
Well, I think various project can we elaborate on that, please? So if we ask the question back, maybe something will come back. We'll check out. So various project management scenarios. What does that mean? Does that mean agile? Is that project methodology, or is it if I'm looking at probability and impact data? Do I use this sort of, chart, or do I use a table for something else, or a timeline if I'm looking at a scenario around, Gantt charts, etc., etc. So I want to push that one back, and I'm not quite sure what that means yet. Okay, so let's come back to that in 5 minutes. Hopefully our delegate, if you like, will give us a little more info on that. Now I've published this report into the PMI US area, I can go and query that or use it on the web. Okay, so you can see here is my list of pages that we saw before. We can get rid of that. And I've got all of the interactivity that we had in here before. So I can click on the red one there and just grab that scope creep item. We can go back to the portfolio dashboard and again, have a look at the key figures. I can add some of these data items as well, specifically these cards. I can pin them to a dashboard. Again, a dashboard, you might have multiple reports that you're interested in. So I might just have a look at, call this, risk dashboard, and pin that up to there. And you can see here, I can also create a phone view of things, which we won't have time to do. But if I go to the dashboard now, then it's just got this single pin on there. Okay, single item pinned up there, which is okay. And I can do interesting things around there, such as set an alert for when that active risk goes above a certain value. Yeah, so if I had a hard value of 10, I wanted to get an email every time that hit 10, then that could be done. You could do the same for project budget as well. So one of the things that I said would be useful is that, obviously this anybody can get access to this so long as we share it correctly. It's security protected. So our workspace, PMI US, we'll have some security around that, and we can have multiple reports in there and multiple dashboards as well. Okay, so it can become a real hub for finding everything out about what's happening in our organization across one or more projects. The other thing we can do is use Power BI on a mobile. So here we've got, this is my Samsung, which we're looking at. So this is a real demo. If I click on the Power BI icon there, and in fact, if I go back, let me just, because it's a bit of a pain to navigate. So let me come into here and just, I'm going to favorite this risk dashboard. Okay, so it's now marked as a favorite, so it should appear in my favorites list here, which is there, risk dashboard. And therefore, if I go back to here and I click on the button at the bottom, that one, okay, with my big thumb, I'll click on that with favorites, and it's not yet there. So if we refresh this, it's going to take a little while, isn't it? Let's come back out. Let's go back into Power BI. Okay, let's go home. Let's go into recents. See if we can find that in there. World Pop projects. Now, typically it's deciding.
While we wait on that, we do have a couple more questions if you want to take those now.
Let's go for that. Yes, please.
Okay. We've previously had sessions on Tableau. So the question is, do you have any advice on transitioning from Power BI or Tableau? Or I think it is choosing Power BI or Tableau, not transitioning. So the question is, do you have any questions of benefits of one over the other?
No. I mean, they're both great systems and they're both good solutions. It's a bit like choosing, do you drive a Volkswagen or a Ford? Okay, they're both great cars. They'll both get you from A to B, and they're both similar in features and functionality. Partly it comes down to which one do I already have, or which one am I familiar with? Where's my licensing going? Yeah, and then specifically, are there any features which the Ford offers that the Volkswagen doesn't, which is a must-have for me in my organization, and can I or can I not live without it? For me, Power BI, if you look at Gartner and the third parties, you know, and the Magic Quadrant, you know, Power BI is right up there and is taking the world by storm at the moment. It fits in with the Microsoft ecosystem, and it's just got more traction now than everything else, or than anything else. Doesn't, you know, there'll be features. There'll be somebody who says, yeah, but it doesn't do this or it doesn't do that, and that'll be absolutely true. Okay, but at the end of the day, it's about. I'll go back to thinking like a designer. You've got to make sure your reports are easy for people to use. Okay, so there's my Tableau versus Power BI versus clip view overview.
Okay, that's very insightful, and I think that's very relevant because there's been a lot of talk about that, and that's what our series is based on.
Yeah,
And we have had more feedback on the question from earlier. So the
yeah.
specific scenario is, for example, a resource loading scenario. Would you recommend using a pie chart over a bar chart, or how would you go about picking a visualization for that?
Yeah, so for something like resource loading, and here's one we did for a customer a while back, and you can kind of see it here. Pie charts are just a not great chart. So I would always use. We can probably see this on the capacity plan piece. I won't choose that one because it's very similar to this one. Resource loading, and this is what this resource availability and work one does. So visually, you want to know when are my resources overloaded, and that's typically by time, which is why, you know, this allows some sort of drill through in there. And you want to know a couple of things. You know, what is this? Could just be, instead of remaining work, it could be negative capacity. So if there's a value in here, you're seeing it. So bar chart typically is useful. And then, you know, how much am I overloaded? In this case, this is why I've got the capacity in here, because if I'm just a little bit overloaded, I don't care. If I'm double overloaded, I care. So for me, the visualization I'd want would be something like this, supported then by the detail that we can drill into and say, well, what's happening, you know, in November, and just drill into that detail and see where that work is in November. Because there's always the next question, isn't there? Well, I'm overloaded. Right. Where? Yeah. So for me, it would be a combination, and that's exactly why I ended up building this specific page to answer exactly that question. Okay. OAC, anything else?
Yeah, I think that's also helpful. We have another question about uploading reports to a website. So how can I upload a report to a website?
Okay, so from here, if we go back to here, and we go and look at that report, so we go into here, then this is inbuilt into Power BI in truth. Once this loads, you can see I've got a little button here called embed, and this will generate for me an embed code to share directly to SharePoint Online. In fact, SharePoint's lovely because it has a Power BI widget, so it will just consume this. Or if I'm using a different content management solution, then I can generate an iframe, which I can then use to paste into that content management system. So most things will accept an iframe and an embed code. So that's how I would do it. If this is publicly available information, okay, and not everything is, of course, then you can publish this directly to the web, but then that is searchable by everybody. So you can embed Power BI into websites, you can embed it into Teams, SharePoint, etc., etc. But it's just, you just generate your own iframe from this tool here.
We've had another question that also came
Yeah.
in, and it's I'm a big fan of bullet charts, but the project online data is not set up to support them. Do you have any success with bullet charts? Is there a way to manipulate the data to enable bullet charts?
I'm not familiar with bullet charts at all, so I'd need to know a little more about what a bullet chart is. And, you know, I'm happy to take that question because you've got my email address. So if you want to pass it on to that delegate and we can try and answer that, or if we've got 5 minutes now. So if we can get further information, but I expect it might just take more than 5 minutes to work out bullet charts.
Yep, absolutely. We can have them get in touch.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all the questions. I think you can go ahead and wrap up. We have about 5 more minutes if there's anything else.
Brilliant. Now I'm happy. My phone seems to be having a bit of a meltdown, and so I'm not getting that coming through on my favorites yet. I don't want to reboot my phone. But just, well, you don't know if I'm telling the truth at all or not, do you? But this one here called Middlesbrough, that was my customer yesterday. So the point is, you can go and you can get access to the data wherever you are, kind of if you needed to. And this was sales value of properties in the UK. So it does work. Just not quite as fast as you always want when you're doing a demo. All right, I said we'd get everybody out with 5 minutes to spare, so I'm done if everybody's happy. Oh, one thing I should say is if I do go back to that slide, if you want to download a version of the content pack that I've just displayed, and it is the previous version, actually, it is available on GitHub. If you want the latest version, again, just email me. I'll get around to putting it on GitHub sometime soon.
Okay, thank you, Ben, for that presentation. I'm going to go ahead and take the screen and kind of wrap everything up. So can you see my screen okay? Okay, I'm going to assume everybody can see my screen and everybody can hear me, but I just want to thank Ben for sharing your tips on working with Power BI. I know we've talked a lot about analytic tools, and Power BI has been a hot topic. So I'm sure a lot of people are eager to get their hands on it and see what it's capable of. We appreciate the time and effort put into all of this, and thanks again for coming and talking with us. With that being said, that's all we have for today, and we can all get a few minutes back in our day, just a minute or two. Hope to see you all on the next Tech Thursday webinar. Stay safe and have a great rest of your afternoon.